There are certain games I've given up on ever owning, like Little Samson, but still, I like to check the prices every so often and wait a minute, what's this? Looks like I found a deal. This is gonna go down as a big time score. And hey, this has got me thinking maybe I can do a swap-a-roo with some of this other trade fodder to pick up some Neo Geo games while I'm at it. Who needs all this garbage anyways? Papa likes Neo Geo. Okay, so here's the thing. As much as it would be great to have an alternative way to acquire expensive games, you need your soul. You just do. As much as we all love video games, perhaps some more than others, no game is worth your soul, and when people talk about selling their soul for a game, it's just an expression. What they really mean is, boy, howdy do I really want that game. And it isn't necessarily just about money either. I mean, I've heard somebody say they'd sell their soul for Super Mario World. What does that game cost? Like 20 bucks? So yeah, selling your soul for a game doesn't mean selling your actual literal soul. How would you even do that? Some would say by stretching 4x3 games into widescreen. Besides games that are expensive, when somebody says they'd sell their soul for a game, a lot of times they're referring to games that have immense sentimental value. I mean, just think about it. Can you remember any games or consoles that you had as a child that you would love to be able to have again? We're talking the exact physical copy you used to have, but at some point sold it or did who knows what with it years ago. And yet, how on earth would you even go about trying to possibly track it down? Timmy knows. Mean Bean Machine for your soul, Timmy. But don't worry, I'll cut you a deal and throw in your N64 controller too. But it cuts both ways. What I would give to have my old original clear Game Boy Pocket with my original copy of Donkey Kong Land 3, with the boxes and everything, even though that's not how I collect Game Boy stuff now. I'll never forget the day my mom took me to Toys R Us to get it. It was 1997. The original Game Boy had already been out since 1989 at that point. For years, I had been tortured by all the other kids around me who seemed to all have Game Boys and all not be willing to share their Game Boys with me. Would you have shared your Game Boy with this kid? I would always ask pretty nicely. But when I was walking through Toys R Us that day to pick up a Game Boy, and boy golly, a game to go with it, I'm telling you, you just can't understand what that felt like. Well, actually, I guess maybe some of you can. I've heard similar stories. But here's the thing. As well as I can remember the day I got that Game Boy and the endless hours I spent playing it, and even the endless days of having the boxes proudly displayed in a certain section of my room, I cannot, for the life of me, remember the day I got rid of them. They were probably just traded into GameStop in a desperate effort to get whatever the next new game or system I wanted was. Hey, I wonder how much store credit you could get for trading your soul into GameStop. And then perhaps the even better question would be, what would they do with it? I have heard they've been trying to expand their lineup of what they sell. Okay, but so far we've been talking about games or consoles that you no longer have that you would sell your soul to get back. But since this is all hypothetical, figure of speech type conversation anyways, why don't we talk about games that you luckily do still currently own, but if for some reason you ever lost them, you would sell your soul to get them back. Quick little tip for you though, to prevent this from happening, I like to leave sweet little notes inside some of my games that are meaningful. Oops, I also like to put reminders for myself in there too. These games are the house is burning down and you can only grab a few games on your way out games. Don't forget your kitty cat. Real quick though, I've mentioned the house is burning down scenario before, and I should have seen it coming, but a few people in the comments said, yeah, I can relate because my house has actually burned down before. To those people, I feel it's safe to say that you have everyone's condolences. That said, the point is to get you thinking about what you would save first. And let's just assume you're home alone at the time. You'd want to save stuff that couldn't be easily replaced. And this is where it gets interesting, because would you just take the games that have the most monetary value, or would you prioritize things with personal value? I tell you what you wouldn't take: whatever is really difficult to unplug, or for goodness sake, at least just leave the cords behind. You know, they say that when inside a burning building to stay low to the ground, and they also say you should do practice fire drills. You can count me as prepared. I tend to think that if people could only save a few games, they would default to pulling out the things that have the most monetary value. But on the other hand, I could also see people prioritizing things with personal value if the personal value is indeed meaningful enough. So a copy of Castlevania you found for $5 at a garage sale on a random Saturday afternoon by yourself probably isn't making the cut, unless that was just one heck of a Saturday afternoon. You tell me, but I would think it's most likely going to be your games or systems that were given to you by somebody special in your life. The only reason I probably still have this GameCube stool is because it reminds me of my mom, who got me the GameCube that it was included with. Might be hard to save in a fire though, as the shape is kinda weird to carry with other Actually, just that of a solution. Games could also be personally meaningful to you, not because somebody special gave it to you, but because somebody special played it with you. Or if you really want to load the deck, both. Ah, yes, the age-old trick. Buy somebody something as a gift for them so that you can use it yourself. So consider it. I remember back in my college dorm, somebody purchased a plunger for our floor and said, "Yeah, you're all welcome. Just thought I'd help everybody out." And just in case you ask, no, the person wasn't me. But if you have fond memories of playing a game with somebody, does it need to be the exact same copy if the positive association has more to do with the experience of playing the game? Perhaps it could be, but my guess is that it's not quite on the soul-selling level. Alright, but now let's talk about those expensive games that I mentioned before. Expensive games are always kind of a weird thing to talk about, because whenever people see somebody who has an expensive game, they're always wondering in the back of their mind, did you pay a buttload of money for that? Quick fun fact, a buttload used to be an actual measurement used for alcohol. One buttload equals 126 gallons. The more you know. But for expensive games, yeah, we all know they get a lot of attention because of their prices, but there are some people who would just genuinely like to own these games since, in a lot of cases, but certainly not all, these are good games we're talking about. And for most of these games, to make matters worse, the prices haven't gone down. In fact, they've gone up. This can make certain games seem darn near unobtainable. And yet, there they are, being dangled right in front of your face, increasing the desirability and desperation until somebody says something as crazy as "I would sell my soul for that game." This is why anytime I see an expensive game finally get a more affordable release, I always think, oh, thank goodness, folks can hang on to their souls after all. Or when people realize they're perfectly happy by just finding some of the free ways to play games. Okay, but now I got one last scenario that I think a lot of you will relate with. Being willing to sell your soul, remember, just a figure of speech, for a game that doesn't yet exist. Perhaps it exists as a rumor, perhaps it exists as merely something that many other like-minded fans also wish for, but in any case, it doesn't actually exist, and that's just, well, some days are tougher than others. I would sell my soul for a new Banjo-Kazooie game. Heck, even just for a remake of the original game. It could be done like the Crash Bandicoot games were. Those were really nice. So yeah, I really want more Banjo-Kazooie, and with that said, I thought it would be fun for everyone to share which games they would sell their soul for and why, using any of the scenarios I've mentioned in this video, or perhaps using another scenario. And remember, since this is all figuratively speaking, your answer could be a game that you already own or that isn't even worth that much money. I'm looking forward to seeing what your answers are. So with that, leave a response with your answer or anything else you'd like to say, and I will see ya in the next video.
He's the retro bird, yeah, and he's talking about me.